Good evening. If this is your first time here and you don't know who I am, my name is Connor Strickland. I'm the large group coordinator here. Usually I do what Zane did tonight. I just get up, give announcements, do all that fun stuff. I'm also a small group leader of God Squad for whoever, which however many of them are here tonight. So this year I've been getting up, talking in front of people, whatnot. Nothing that much out of the ordinary. I've got a couple pictures to show y'all. So the first one is, this was me when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. Not much has changed since then. This is my first official sermon and whatnot, but as you can see, I have been up talking in front of people since before I could barely even see over the actual podium. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad Zane asked me to talk tonight. There were a lot of other people he could have asked, but I guess no one responded to him. We will go to get started. I've been coming to Boone for a few times a year for as long as I can remember. My dad graduated from App. He's sitting in the back. A few of my cousins have graduated from App, and a couple of my really close friends have also graduated from App. App was my first experience of a college town and of a college atmosphere. You go to hit the next, there we go. I can vividly remember one night when I was about 6 or 7 years old, sitting in Daniel Boone Inn, the amazing Southern cooking restaurant right there on 321 and 421. I remember sitting there one night after a long day of snowboarding, and as I was waiting for the food or I had already ate, I remember just looking out the window and just seeing all the people that were walking by, all the college students that were coming back from class, that were going to events, that were walking back to their cars. And I remember just sitting there and looking at them and saying, one day that's going to be me. One day that will be me walking those same road, walking down 321. That will be me, that will be a student here at App State. So this was 6, 7 years old, so a good ways away. So now fast forward to high school days. A time in everyone's life when they are about to make one of the biggest decisions of their young lives. The first thing I was told when I was entering high school was, start strong and work hard. The next 4 years of my life were going to set me up for the rest of my life. I knew that my hard work would allow me to go to whatever university I wanted to go to. Now fast forward a couple more years to my senior year. It's time for me to hit submit on my college applications. All the hard work that I had been previously worked on for the last 12 years of grade school was now coming down to this one moment. This time when I was going to apply to the school where I was going to spend the next chapter of my life that was going to prepare me for my future. So I applied to 3 schools. I applied to the Citadel, which is a military academy in Charleston, South Carolina. I applied to NC State, which was my childhood and hometown school. And then I applied to good old Appalachian State, the same one that I wanted to go to since I was 6 years old. So now what? I spent 12 years working for this moment where I can apply to a college that I want to go to. And now it's over. The ball is now in their court. I have no more control. And all that I can do is just wait. But what do I wait for? What do I do while I'm waiting? Do I continue to try in school? Do I continue to excel in my academics, my sports, my leadership roles? Or do I simply just wait? Do I sit around and do I wait for the day that I get a letter? Hopefully I hear a yes. Most likely I would hear a no. But the thing that I was struggling with was, what am I supposed to do during this next couple months? So we often struggle to know what to do during these seasons of waiting. However, there's good news for us. The disciples struggled with waiting as well. Leading up to the passage I'll be going into tonight, in Matthew chapter 24, Jesus has just finished telling his disciples of his death and resurrection. Now imagine if you are one of the disciples. You have given up your entire life, and everything you have had, you have given it aside to follow this man. You have seen the miracles he has done. You have seen the crowds that he has gathered. You've seen the people that he has changed. And you have been with him as he was praised and worshiped, as he rode into Jerusalem. And yet here he is telling you that he's getting ready to be nailed to a tree to die. You have heard of his triumphant return, but you have no details of how or when he will return. So naturally, like any of us would do, the disciples asked him. They asked Jesus 2 simple questions. They said, Jesus, tell us of the signs of your return and give us the date. As Jesus often does, he doesn't give them the answers that they want. Jesus told them, you will know the signs of my return. However, no man will know the date. And immediately he went into a series of parables. The first parable that Jesus tells is the parable of the 10 virgins. The idea behind this parable is that there are 10 brides who took their lamps to go wait for the return of a bridegroom. 5 5 of them took oil and 5 did not. So then as the bridegroom was coming, the 5 who had brought oil stayed to wait and to welcome the groom. However, the 5 foolish women that did not carry any oil had to return back into town to get more oil. While they were gone, the bridegroom came. The key point here is that this is similar to our wait for when Jesus is going to return. We are to wait and live our lives as if Jesus could return right now, as if he could return tomorrow. But the question is, what are we supposed to do while we wait? Jesus automatically launches into a second parable. The second parable isn't just about waiting, but it is about what do we do while we wait. So tonight we're going to be reading through Matthew chapter 25, 14 through 30. For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went his way. He who had received the 5 talents went out once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went, dug in the ground, and hid his master's money. And after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also who had 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me with 2 talents. Here, I have made 2 talents more. Once again, his master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid. I went out and I hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I had not sown, and gathered where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will be given, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into outer darkness, in a place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So this parable seems to be fairly straightforward. There's a master who obviously is extremely wealthy, and he's about to embark on a journey. Now, a journey back in their days is not like a journey today. For us today, we can take a weekend trip to the other side of the country. Back then, a journey may have meant a year, 2 years, 3 years, even more years. So while the master was gone on his journey, there were things that needed to be done. There were crops that needed to be sowed, grown, and harvested. There were animals that needed to be taken care of, and all of his work must go on. So the master calls 3 servants to whom he will entrust a great deal of money. One guy, he gave 1 talent, one he gave 2, and one he gave 5. Now don't be fooled about the guy who only has 1 talent. 1 talent is an extraordinary amount of wealth. Let me explain. A talent is a form of a measurement. So 1 talent weighs about the same as a 75-pound bag of gold or silver. So imagine you have just received, and 1 talent weighs about a 75-pound bag of gold or silver. And it's used as a counterweight on one of those old school scales where you have to set one thing here and you set everything else over here until it gets balanced. So a talent is this massive old rock thing that they would set down, and then they would measure it out about how much gold or silver you deserve until you get to that 1 talent. So 1 talent was equal to a 75-pound bag of gold. So imagine that you have just received this massive bag of gold. It is a great deal of money. So it said that 1 talent, to each man he gave 5, to one man he gave 5 talents, to one he gave 2, and to the other he gave 1. Each according to their ability. Pay close attention to this phrase, and we'll be back to it soon. Now it's easy to say in this parable that the master represents Jesus and we represent the servants. The journey that the master is going on represents the time between when Jesus ascended to heaven and when he will return. God has entrusted something to us. Now what is crazy about the amount that the master entrusted to his servants is that he did so with the expectation that they had the capability to handle it. This brings us to our first point in the passage. God has given you everything you need in order to do what he has called you to do. We're a living proof of this, each of us in this room tonight. Zane was sent to App State 3 years ago to replant a university chapter that only had 10 people. It was a task that was destined to fail unless God showed up. Now, I'm not ragging on Zane or his capabilities, but there's no way that one man could take a ministry of 10 people and turn it into a ministry of 110 in just 3 years without the work of God. This was able to happen, however, because people, students, staff workers, faculty, everyone together who were entrusted with talents from God put them to use. And remember that wherever God guides, He will provide. Each and every one of you in this room has a very heavy bag of talents. And by talents, we're not only just talking about money. We often think of talents these days as not someone's money, but by someone's skills or their ability. Each of you has a deep bag of these talents, of these skills, of these abilities. You may read this and say, well, I'm just a person with one talent. And you see, it doesn't actually matter, because the master, who this story is Jesus, and God, is the one who's in control over who gets what and what ability they're going to have. But this is where we have trouble. We often want to sneak around, poke our nose in, and look at everyone else's bag and say, like, man, if only I could play the djembe like Michael. If only I could sing like Elena. Or if only I was as athletic as LeBron James. If only I had that guy's wealth. But if we just took 1 second just to stop and think, who gave you all of these abilities? Who gave you the ability to make money, to play an instrument, or to play basketball? Who gave you all that? It all belongs to God. God has given all of us our abilities, each according to our abilities, and all He asks for in return is that we are faithful. Have we forgotten that even one talent is still an extraordinary amount of wealth? We say, well, yeah, I guess I have a lot, but if only I had as much as that guy. If only I could be as good as this person. But you know, that's just human nature. We see here that God will provide you with everything that you need in order to do His work. What has God called you to do, and how has He equipped you to do it? Ultimately, we see in this passage that the amount that they were given isn't actually what is important. Matthew 25:16 says, "He who had received the 5 talents went out once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. He also who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug a hole into the ground and hid his master's money. And after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled the accounts with them." This brings us to our second point. With responsibility comes accountability. The point of this accountability is more to assess their faithfulness. Jesus said, "And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, 'Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I have made 5 talents more.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master.' And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, 'Master, you delivered me with 2 talents. Here, I have made 2 talents more.' And his master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master.'" The response from the master is the same for both of them. One man came back with 10 talents, and the other man came back with 4. However, they both got identical responses from their master. The master isn't worried or focused about the amount that they yielded, rather the fact that they took what they were given and they made something of it. The master goes on to say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much." Now let me assure you that there will be no award or acceptance that are better than hearing these words from Jesus one day. "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your master." There's no job or promotion you can receive, no pat on the back from a friend, and no acceptance letter from a college that will ever compare to hearing, "Well done, good and faithful servant," from Jesus. However, it doesn't always end well for everyone. There's still the guy left who only had 1 talent. And this is his story. He came to the master and said, "I know you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid. I went, I dug a hole, and I hid your money in the ground." This man did actually not know his master at all. This man had no reason to be afraid, nor was his master hard. Instead, his master was extremely generous to give him this amount of money in the first place. Picture this. A man has just been given a 75-pound bag of silver. To us, even in this day, that is still a great amount of money. Back then, it is said that this 1 talent could easily have been up to 5 years' wage. So this guy just received this massive bag. And what does he do? He goes out, he digs a hole, and he buries it. Now the master comes back to see what his servants have done. And the 5 has 5 more. The 2 has 2 more. And then the man with 1 talent goes, digs his money up out of the ground, and brings it back to his master and says, "Here, you have what is yours. And to his servant's amazement, the master responds, you wicked and lazy servant. Now pause to think about what Jesus is saying here. He's saying, I'm not disappointed in the amount of money you brought back, but instead that you were lazy and you decided to do nothing with what you were given. We almost get the sense that it would have been better for this man to go out and try to do something with his money and lose every last dime or last coin that he was given, than for him to do nothing with it. Jesus goes on to use the same man's words against him. He says, you know I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scatter no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. You understood that I expected a return, and that when I returned, that there would be accountability. And you know that I was a hard man, but that isn't the problem. The problem is that you took what I entrusted with you, you went outside, you dug a hole, and you buried it. So what does it look like for us to be this unfaithful servant? Is it that we take what was entrusted to us, and that we choose to do nothing with it? Is the problem that we are lazy? You see, I don't think that's the problem. We're students, we're leaders, we're employees, we're all students here at college. So I don't think the problem is necessarily that we're lazy. You see, I believe the problem is that we're distracted. The crazy part is that the very talents and abilities that God gave us, we take them and turn, the talents that were meant to bring glory to God, we take them and turn them into our distractions. We don't see the value in how much God has given us, so we don't feel compelled to give back and invest in God's kingdom. You see, the servant with one talent is like the consumer Christian. They are the people that will go about their life doing the bare minimum in order to get by. They go to church, they hear a message, they stand around while other people worship. They go to small group, but they rarely open up. They go throughout life checking off their Christian boxes. These are the people that will say that they have accepted Jesus, say that they believe, and say that they are a Christian. They may even post scripture on their social media, act as if they have life all together, but do nothing with their talents in order to pursue people or to grow God's kingdom. They're too focused, or actually they are too distracted by their work, by their bank account, by their title, in order to better the kingdom of God. And they are the same people that when Jesus returns will say, I kept your promise. I believed in you. Here's your one talent back. But as Christ followers, this isn't what we're called to. We're called to be like the servants with 2 talents and 5 talents. They are better described as the surrenderers. They're the ones that go to church with a desire to get involved. They're the ones who will pursue the people in their small group or in their office. They're the ones who will openly share and talk about their faith with others. And they're the ones that will go and do whatever God asks of them. They're the ones who are willing to surrender their lives for Jesus. They surrender to the Lord and are faithful with what they have been given. They are the ones that will say, here, you gave me 2 talents. I give you back 4. The master doesn't care about the amount of money that the servants bring back. He cares about whether or not they were faithful. Now, the gospel isn't about what you can produce. It's about recognizing the great wealth and treasures that has been given through us through Jesus Christ. What we have been given is life itself. We've been set free from sin and from death. One of my favorite stories is about a man who went down to a slave auction to buy a slave girl. As she looked at the man bidding on her, she figured he was another white man going to buy her and then abuse her. He won the bid, and as he was walking away with his newly bought property, he said, young lady, you are free. She said, what does that mean? He responded once again, you are free. Does that mean, she said, that I can say whatever I want to say? The man said, yes, you can say whatever you want to say. Does that mean, she said, that I can be whatever I want to be? The man said, yes, you can be whatever you want to be. Does that mean that I can go wherever I want to go? The man responded, yes, you can go wherever you want to go. And the girl, with tears streaming down her face, turned and said, then I will go with you. You see, this should be the response that we have to Jesus. Because where else are we going to go? When we receive a treasure this great, how can you take that, dig a hole, and just bury it? You have no choice but to be faithful. We are not called to produce for God, but we are called to be faithful and contribute. So, which servant are you? Are you the one who does the bare minimum to get by? The one that goes to church, says the right thing, and are you the one that says that they believe? Or are you like the first 2 servants? The one who took the gifts and talents that they were given and uses them to create more? Are you one that uses your talents to show others Christ? And do you use your talents to further God's kingdom? So here's the question that I'll leave you with tonight. After knowing and realizing what God has given you, have you given God your whole life in return? Let me pray.